Hare Krishna.
Dandavat devotees of the world and the Lord, welcome to Sri Govinda Mela. Today is Sunday. We just had a beautiful Sunday program, a beautiful prasadam, and now it's time for sweet or dolce. Here in the stage we have Sripad, Sudarshan, Prabhu, and Sripad. Munindra Mohan, Prabhu from Italy, and we're gonna die.
One day more, Didi, then it's over. Then you can rest.
Yeah, my brain left the house for a while now. So, in the background, you might hear the sweet pastimes of the children here in the Sudarshan, the water slide. But we're gonna be here for you because you need to hear about Srimad Bhagavad Gita and Srila Govinda Maharaj. So please give us a sweet welcome to our speakers today. Thank you so much. Jai Gurudev.
Jai. I think you overestimate our charisma. Anyway, we shall try to say something to the people who is listening. And I'm very honored to be here with Sudarshan Prabhu, which I consider the best next generation of preacher in our mission, really, for his precise, graphic, and enthusiastic presentation of the Siddhanta. And this chance to speak about Bhagavad Gita is a very good chance because to me, this book, Bhagavad Gita, the Song of God, has been the turning point in my life, really. Yeah, yesterday we told the story how me and Krishna Kanta came to join Krishna consciousness. And when she went back from India, she couldn't explain what kind of philosophy she embraced. And then she gave me a copy of Bhagavad Gita as it is by Swami Prabhupada. And take it, read. I don't know how to explain. Here is everything.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I was going to ask yesterday. Did you have a verse? I was going to ask this question yesterday, but when you were reading Bhagavad Gita, like, did you feel like there was a turning point or a specific kind of set of verses or like some part of it that was specifically like hitting, if you will, where something is going, oh, this is unusual or this is amazing, or some particular section of Bhagavad Gita?
Yes, in the beginning, Atmagyana struck me more. The second chapter, Sankhya Yoga, Atmagyana in the Swami Prabhupada version, no doubt. I was studying philosophy at university, then they kicked me out, but I was very into philosophy, and the first thing struck me about Bhagavad Gita is the best metaphysics book I ever read in university environment. Plus, not only that, it's affectionate. It's talking to you. It's Krishna talking to Arjuna because he is friend. And he's talking to us as friend. Not like other book of metaphysics, like Kant, Hegel, Schopenhauer. They're all like very dry in the mental Bhuva plane. And Bhagavad Gita is not like that. It's talking to you. It's very living book. And is your friend forever, for all life. And really, I'm a lot in depth with Bhagavad Gita. So anytime I can get the chance to serve Bhagavad Gita, distribute or talk about Bhagavad Gita, I feel very good because I I want to serve Bhagavad Gita. And especially the hidden treasure of the sweet absolute. Because it's not ordinary Bhagavad Gita, it's something more. It's something that in the other edition of Bhagavad Gita you can't really find, but in our Gurudev Bhagavad Gita, because I heard is officially Srila Sridhar Maharaj Gita, but actually Srila Govinda Maharaj took charge, because that time Srila Sridhar Maharaj was quite sick. So it's more Govinda Maharaj Bhagavad Gita, actually. I heard from some sources.
Well, we actually had some experience at that time, because when Sagar Maharaj was putting together the hidden treasure, he was staying in a little trailer above our little trailer in Badger in California.
Oh, wow.
And it was very much a process of taking the writings of Guru Maharaj, but then always they would send it to India and Gurudev would review and give the changes. It was 100% through Gurudev as the editor.
Yeah, was the first edition. Then Gurudev wanna change a little bit later. The second edition become more the English, little different style,
Yes.
more contemporary,
Accessible, yeah.
accessible, and even the Italian second edition, the first Italian translation followed the first edition English. Then the second edition Italian followed the second edition. So even the Italian reflect is more colloquial language. And our Bhagavad Gita is very special, because Srila Sridhar Maharaj and Govinda Maharaj, they show Bhakti Yoga in every chapter. Usually people think the first chapter is observing the army, then the second chapter is Atma Gyan, then the Karma Yoga, then the Jnana Yoga, then meditation, and this and that. And Buddhi Yoga is like coming all the way in all the chapter, and is the common thread. But Bhakti Yoga is in every chapter, because there is no yoga without Bhakti, really. What's the purpose of yoga? We are not machine, we are not artificial intelligence, we have heart. So if you do Karma Yoga, it's just because you're temporarily engaging so much tendency of action. So your yoga will be towards action. But you're still a living being with a heart. So action without heart doesn't mean anything. Even a machine can act, right? So then I found in the Revealed Truth by Govinda Maharaj the best explanation of Bhagavad Gita ever. Especially in the chapter, I suggest everyone to read Evolution of Consciousness, Spiritual Evolution and Spiritual Revolution. Those two chapters in Revealed Truth. It's like a guide how to read Bhagavad Gita. And Gurudev explained that first you have to purify your consciousness, little basic knowledge, Atma Jnana, then through Karma Yoga, your system will be purified and you can begin to know something. So Jnana Yoga. And then when you have more knowledge, Jnana, Vijnana, etc., then you can start to meditate. Otherwise, no way. And there's a system like a ladder, like steps in a ladder. We used to make this example in the yoga environment, because they think the 6th chapter is about yoga and all the other chapter is other things. But it's a systematic explanation of how to realize God. So he's our friend for life. If we keep in our table Bhagavad Gita and read again and again, he's also recommended by Gurudev in that sheet handwriting that Sudarshan house has to hang. Read Bhagavad Gita every day. And it's not to be considered a book for beginners, not at all. Even after 50 years, Gurudev told, I find always new, fresh contribution in my life when Gurudev, after 50 years of reading Bhagavad Gita. So what to speak of us?
Yes.
Okay, this is just few words from me because I really want to hear from Sudarshan. He's amazing deliverer of class. Evolution, and then the following one is revolution. I think spiritual evolution and spiritual revolution. Because in the end, it's also a revolutionary book. It's step by step, but in the end, Sarva Dharma Parityaja. Forget everything and just surrender to me. So both evolutionary movement and revolutionary movement is there.
So we've been reading a chapter a week in Salt Lake City for about 15 years. And that is because of Gurudev, because we asked him a few questions, and he said, do Gita class every week on Wednesday. So we've been doing Gita class every week on Wednesday, no matter what, for 15 years. And it's been an amazing gift from Srila Gurudev to giving us that sadhana. Just a few thoughts from the Gita, because the Gita is occurring in the midst of a battle. And it's a circumstance that Arjuna does not want to be in. And there's pretty much no one on earth that that's not relevant to, right? You find yourself in a circumstance that you do not want to be in, and what's your reaction? You know, Arjuna's reaction, drop the bow, I'm not fighting. And we all, whatever our bow is and whatever our fight is, we've all felt that same type of, I am not doing this. And it's a very interesting beginning to the conversation because it's super relatable. And the first thing that Krishna says is, well, who are you? Who's the you that's saying no, right? And to understand the different dimensions of who you are, you know, your mental system, this sort of like accumulated egotistic pattern that you're in, or your actual soul, right? And you know, Krishna's emphasizing, like, you don't even know who you are to say that you're not going to do this. And, you know, Srila Guru Maharaj, he gives like in a few places, he sort of gives this overall picture of what the Gita is saying. And he says this in a few books, in Sutra Sri Krishna, in Subjective Evolution, etc. He's saying the Gita is actually saying there's no problem with your environment. Loving Search, it's in there. Like Guru Maharaj just summarized the Gita saying, there is no problem with your environment, you need to adjust yourself. And I remember reading this after we had done maybe like 2 or 3 years of reading the Gita. And then you read this thing again, you're like, wait, that's what the Gita said? Like, what?
In a battlefield.
And we're like, how? Right, it's just amazing how you can read the Gita for like multiple years and then read what Guru Maharaj is saying. This is what the Gita is saying. Then you read it again with that idea in mind, and you're like, oh my God, this is what the Gita is saying. That there's a greater flow. There's a thing that you're meant to contribute in your life. And it is not trivial or meaningless. It's extremely meaningful and necessary. And it's necessary for the flow of reality, and it's necessary for you. And to start to read the Gita with that framework in mind is like super helpful. Because you understand that it is a continuum, as Prabhu was saying. You know, there's Buddhi Yoga, which is, this is the, sort of hierarchy of knowledge, hierarchy of connection to the Absolute. And that all of these different yogas, karma yoga, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, karma sannyas yoga, etc., yoga, Yoga means connection. And they're all different stages of connection to the absolute. That's leading ultimately to the end, which is Sharanagati, the highest possibility of the soul. And there's a framework to the conversation. It's really easy to, sometimes you can pick up the Gita, read one shloka, and it's going to give you something. It's going to relieve something inside of yourself. But at the same time, there's a communication that's happening that's really important. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he analyzed the Gita from the perspective of the time that Krishna was in. So when you read Mahabharata and you see what the sages are saying in Mahabharata, for the most part, everyone is really looking for some type of Sayuja Mukti, some type of Brahman, some type of Brahman conception. And in the midst of this kind of society, the Lord himself is appearing. It's very, very interesting. And what he's saying for the society at that time is completely revolutionary. It's totally unknown. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur said there's 3 hidden truths that are given in the Gita that Krishna is saying that's revolutionary for that time. And that's in chapters 3 and 4, which is Karma and Jnana Yoga, which means you are in a living environment that you have to enter into, that you have something to contribute to, that you have to participate in. Right? So Karma Yoga is saying you have to participate in this. You have something to give. You have to give without any expectation. You have to do your duty fully without any requirement for something in return. That's a revolutionary idea. Give yourself completely in participation with this world that you're in, with the environment that you find yourself surrounded in. And then in chapter 7 and 8, Krishna is giving another fresh idea, which is there's personality behind reality. Behind reality is a personality. And then in chapters 9 and 10, you have to enter into relationship with that personality. And that relationship is sweet and fulfilling to your very essence of your being. And so Bhaktivinoda Thakur has laid out these kind of 3 guhyam or hidden truths that Krishna was giving within the Gita. That's the framework for our own existence. We are here to do something. We are not randomly existing. We're existing within the world because we have some contribution and some participation, and we have to face that and give it. And there is the Lord behind everything. And ultimately, we're meant to offer whatever we do as a service unto Him. So, these kind of beautiful frameworks are given to us to actually help us to live a life that's meaningful and a life that's giving and not running from what we have to deal with. I can just maybe read something from Srila Guru Maharaj from Search for Sri Krishna that I think is really, really nice in terms of his own summary of the Gita.
Yeah, in this book there is a chapter called Gita, Bhagavad Gita.
It's called Saints, Scriptures, and Gurus, but it's basically about Gita, yeah. So he's asking the student, why have you come to India? And he said, and they said, we want to visit Navadvip, Jagannath Puri, Vrindavan. And Guru Maharaj says, how do you know all these places? How do you know all these names? And they said, we know this from reading Gita. And Sridhar Maharaj says, oh, Bhagavad Gita as it is by Swami Maharaj. And then Guru Maharaj says, many years ago, a German scholar expressed his opinion that Bhagavad Gita is the highest spiritual literature. His point was that Bhagavad Gita clearly advises us not to try to correct our environment, but to correct ourselves, to adjust with the environment. That is the key to the advice of Bhagavad Gita. cure thyself. We have no power to bring about changes in the environment. That is arranged by the divine will. Our environment, the sum total of all the forces acting outside us, is irremovable. We have no ability to interfere with our environment. That will only be a useless loss of energy. Rather, we must try to correct ourselves so that we can adjust with the circumstances outside us. That is the key to our success in life. Tate nukampam susamikshimano. We have our duty to perform, but we must not aspire after the results of our activities. The results depend on Krishna. Karmanyevadikaraste mapale shukadachana. We make our contribution, and at the same time, thousands of millions of others are contributing, creating the environment. So we must do our duty, but we have to accept the ultimate result as best because it is arranged by the Absolute. There are so many results to our individual activities, but we must see how the Absolute will harmonizes everything and adjust ourselves accordingly. So our responsibility lies only in discharging our duty. We must never aspire after any definite environment. The environment will go on its own way, and we have no power to change it. Rather, we must try our best to change ourselves so that we may come in harmony with the environment.
In a battlefield.
In a battlefield. So what do you think?
Huh?
What do you think?
Well, some people think Gita is about Dharma, or some people find it's encouraging war. So many, yeah, you can take it this way, but you need the guidance. You know, it's the Bhagavad Gita itself, this knowledge is coming to you after you surrender to a guru. Tadvini pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. So if you don't do that, it's not working. The transmission of the meaning is not working. And if the same book one person read and we have to fight the bad guys, and you are understanding the opposite. You have to harmonize with the environment. How is possible? The same book, the same very book. So it's a living book, and you have to follow the method. Why we say Krishna consciousness is a science? Because what is a science in the end? It's a method, methodology. How to understand something. One step, another step, another step, another step. And then you can check. So Gita is really a scientific book, really, if you follow the process that is indicated in Gita. And then you come in the core of the Gita, protected by all the other chapters, and then the revelation of something that is not really reachable by knowledge, it's not really reachable by yoga, karma, nothing. It's just a mercy coming from the Absolute, and open your heart to the bhakti. And then Krishna tells that the best yogi is the bhakta. But why you receive or not this message? Why so many people we talk with, they didn't get this, they get other things. Even other commenters of Bhagavad Gita, like Aurobindo, is more into karma, or other very knowledgeable people, they interpret it in so different way, because it's a living book. But you need the spiritual master to understand that, and you need to serve Bhagavad Gita. It's not something that you can use. Bhagavad Gita you have to serve. When you please Bhagavad Gita open to you. And as you told, we are reading because Govinda Maharaj told to read Bhagavad Gita, and that's the best way of reading Bhagavad Gita. Otherwise, it's not gonna happen. Yeah. And what about the meaning that Srila Maharaj found in this verse? Samadharma Paritiyaja, when Braja word happened.
Yes.
Who can say that Krishna become affected by this sound and stop to speak like a Jagat Guru, and his own consciousness goes to Vrindavan.
Hare Krishna.
Who else can say that the pure devotee of Krishna? So you see, our Bhagavad Gita is so special, it's amazing. Only one word, Braja, sounds, the power of sound, Braja. That means another thing, what means literally in action?
It means to go.
To go.
Yeah.
To go in action.
To have some movement. Yeah.
A movement towards what? Where the sweet absolute, the sweet play is free. It's not bound by any dharma, any yoga, any system, nothing. So Krishna becomes silent at this point and do, okay, Arjuna, you do what you want now. I did what could I do? I did. I told you everything, this preliminary knowledge of everything. Then I open also some windows, they're very deep. But Arjuna is in Sakya Rasa. It's not possible to present Madhura Rasa in Bhagavad Gita. But still, Srila Maharaj find many symptoms of Madhura Rasa, even in that central shloka where
Chatur shloka.
Yeah, Chatur shloka. It's also there some indication. Only Srila Maharaj can see that. No one else in the world. That's why our Bhagavad Gita is unique.
I think that's one of the also beautiful things in Gita is that multiple times in the Gita, Krishna presents something to Arjuna, and then he says, "That's my opinion." And at the very end of it, he says, "I've given you what I think. Now do what you want." And I think that that's sort of an essential component of the freedom that the Lord has given us. In the end, He wants what's good for us, but He's presenting it to you because love has to be an expression of our own free will. So he's making this presentation to Arjuna and saying so many things about really this is how you should move and act, and this is what you need to do right now. But he's always saying, just my opinion, do what you like. And you know, I think it's a wonderful thing to think about in spiritual life, is that you really are a soul and you really do have some degree of free will. You can make choices at many, many, many levels in your life. And the Lord has granted you that. But free will is a double-edged sword. You know? You have to take it very, very, very seriously. You know, one time Guru Maharaj compared it to handing a knife to a child. Like how like we have this free will, but we really don't know what to do with it. Right? But at the same time, it's upon us, it's incumbent upon us to start to strive and reach the feet of a great devotee and hear from them, and then properly utilize our free will according to their advice. Because, you know, the verse that Rai always says, Udare datmanatmanam natmanam avasade, which is a Gita verse, says, your mind can be your best friend, your mind can be your worst enemy. And you have to start to understand these layers within yourself, you know, that you have a mental layer. And that mind is not a reliable source of truth. You know, what is the nature of the mind? All of these things are given in the Gita. What is the nature of the mind? Raga Dvesha. What does that mean? You tend to bounce between a binary evaluation of things, right? Raga, Dvesha, two. What's the binary evaluation? I like it, I don't like it, right? That's what the mind does. I like it, I don't like it. Is that a really reliable evaluation of reality? No, it's not, actually, right? Not even at all. And if you're not aware that your mind is doing that, you're going to start to think this little binary, like almost instantaneous bouncing that you're going to have. Where you're like, oh, I like that. Oh, but I don't like that. Like, that's actually what's going to guide your life, right? You have to start to think a little bit, bit deeper. And Guru Maharaj says there's the senses, they're reflected in the mind. The mind's going, I like this, I don't like that, I like this, I don't like that. But then there's something deeper. That's intelligence, buddhi, right? And Guru Maharaj says, okay, that's some wisdom. Your mind is telling you something. It's saying, I don't like this. And then there's something deeper inside of you that can say, hey, shut up. We're doing this now, right? Like Guru Maharaj says, all these things have to come out of theory. It's not just like something you're going to memorize where you're going to be like, okay, there's the senses, and there's the mind, and there's the intelligence, and then there's the soul. It's not like a thing to like memorize. So like, okay, now I know it. It's actually super practical in your life to understand, okay, my mind is making a binary evaluation, which is what it does. It's a little binary control tower, and it's not reliable. And you can be above it and just say, shh, right? Like, I mean, anybody who's like trying to do anything hard has to do that, right? At some point, even if you're like trying to walk up the hill here, and you know, you're like, and your mind's like, okay, time to stop. And you're like, shh, we're gonna keep walking, all right, buddy? That's like some type of control over your little binary like system. And all these things are super true and super practical. And you know, they're all meant to move, like Guru Maharaj says, these are all meant to move out of theory. They have to actually become a part of our life. And buddhi means what? You have some ideal, you have some goal, you have some purpose in your existence that's actually going to guide your decisions. That's pretty profound. And what do you receive from Gurudev? You know, so many things. Devashish Prabhu said so nicely, like, we find ourselves in Chaitanya Saraswat Mat. Do we even understand what this mat is for? Do we know what Rupanuga Sampradaya is? Maybe we have some idea. Did we know when we got here? I had no idea what we're doing. Somehow we ended up here, and some ideal is implanted in us that we could never conceive of. You know, Shri Radha Pada Seva Namrita Mahota Datu Misho. Like, we could never, ever, ever come up with that. But we've received some type of grace, some type of ideal that's implanted within us. That's an ideal that our intelligence can organize around. I've been given an ideal that is so far beyond anything I could ever come up with for myself. Now you have something for your buddhi to like organize your life around. And now when your mind is going like, I like it, I do like it, yeah. Right? You can be like, okay, we're like organizing around something, and you're gonna just, you know, be chattering over there, but we're not like listening to you. I mean, you can kind of like start to feel this. Yeah. I mean, there's some times where you can kind of like pull back and just watch your own mind kind of, you know, doing whatever it does, just wigging out. And you can observe it almost like curiously, but it does not have to control you. And these are actually hugely profound things. You know, I mean, some of the, you know, what we wouldn't even say are the deeper parts of the Gita, but explaining, you know, this sort of like progression of desire to anger, and then, you know, where anger leads to the loss of intelligence and ultimately madness and all these kinds of, like, they're so practical. There's some like 2-3 verses in a row in the Gita where you're like, this is the most important psychological advice like ever. And you don't need anything else,
I was about
really.
to say the same thing.
Yeah.
Because people go to Sri, but really, if we read Bhagavad Gita in this way, we can understand that all our problem comes from desire. And desire brings frustration. And then we come forgetfulness, and then madness. But if we can control our karma, if we can become Nishkama, Shuddha Bhakta, then we don't go to shrink anymore. Really, that's the real psychology. And we can read so many books, but this is the real psychology. It's the science that Krishna delivered to us. Not necessary to go anywhere else.
Yes.
If we can practice this yoga, this true yoga, control the mind, and then make the intelligence sit on the proper asana,
Yes.
and purify intelligence, and this will, our life will be more and more perfect and nice.
Yes. Yeah, like extremely practical advice.
No more crowd and no more frustration.
Yeah. And those
I'm
are
preaching to myself.
and you know, it's still a practicing life. Like you can read like, okay, I mean, and sometimes, you know, your mind is so difficult, like in dhyana yoga where Krishna's just like, steady your mind. And then, you know, focus on, you know, I mean, ultimately you can focus on the feet of the Lord and these kinds of things. And Arjuna's like, whoa, let's go back a couple. Did you just say steady your mind? You know, Krishna's like, yeah, steady your mind. You can do it. It's like, that sounds like harder than controlling the wind. That's what Arjuna says. Krishna's like, no. If you really practice, you can do it.
Yeah. No, it's hard, but it's not impossible. You can do that.
You can do it.
If Krishna tells, we can do.
And then Arjuna's like, okay, let's just theoretically say that possibly somebody I know, like, actually tries to do that and totally fails. Right? It's a really sweet part of the Gita. Someone tries to do it and they fail. So they've left behind their material environment and they didn't reach the spiritual destination. So now he says, aren't they nowhere like a riven cloud? A very sweet expression by Arjuna. And Krishna says something so beautiful and hopeful. He says, you can never lose on this path. Any progress you make on this path is never lost. And he said, if you have that famous verse that Guru Maharaj quotes all the time is in chapter 6. Nahi kalyana krit kaschit. Thank you, Jairam Prabhu. Durgatim tatta gacchati, right? For those who want real good, they can never come to a bad end. Never. So if you have some sincere desire, even a shred of sincere desire, if you really want the real thing, you can never come to a bad end. And anything that you do on this path is never lost. At some point, you will always pick it back up with the full rejoining of whatever you have inside of you. It's like such a beautiful expression. And then at the end of that chapter, as you say, yogi nam api sarve shaman gaten antaratmana, right? Of all the yogis, Krishna's just gone through so many yogas, right? Karma yoga, jnana yoga, karma sannyasa yoga, dhyana yoga. Just went through like 6 chapters of yoga. And then at the end of that 6th chapter, he says, but of all the yogis, yogi nama pisarvesham, madgaten antaratma. Those who dedicate themselves to me, they're the best. So always the Gita is pointing to some, not just practice of yoga in this sort of quest for self-elevation, but ultimately the whole thing is moving into relationship with the sweet absolute. The whole thing is that you are, he's friendly to you. At the end of chapter 5, you know, this is chapter 6, the end of chapter 5, Bhoktaram Yagitapasam, Sarva Loka Maheshwaram, Suhridam Sarva Bhutanam, Gyatva Mam Shantam Richati. Like, I'm consuming everything, all the burning in the universe. I'm consuming it. Yagya Tapasya, everything is in motion and everything is burning. And I'm consuming all of that. But Suhridam Sarva Bhutanam, I'm friendly to you. Know that I'm your friend. And Gyatva Mam Shantam Richati. So if you know this, then you can be at peace. I'm actually your friend. And this is the positivity of Vaishnavism. That ultimately you are in a friendly environment. The cause of all causes is your friend and loves you. And so stop all your like ridiculous organizing outside of connection with him. It's insane. It's literally insane. The cause of all causes is your friend. He's not just the cause of all causes. He's your friend. And he wants to be in relationship with you. And he's reaching out to you over and over again. Please come into relationship to me. Reaching out himself, reaching out through all of his devotees. And we're like, no, I got a few more things to organize. It's like the whole environment that you're within is sustained by him. The only reason why all these molecules stay together is his will. It's like you think you're gonna go somewhere and like make your little BS sandcastle somewhere and like finally get it all done or whatever, you know, like it's nuts. You have to come into like really, you have to come into relationship with the Lord in loving service. And everything else is literally ridiculous. Like it's actually insane. Completely like madness. But he's like seeing us even within that and saying, here I am. This is my advice. Do what you like.
It's amazing. Gita really is our friend for life. And it's inside the Mahabharata, which is Itihas, is history. But Bhagavad Gita is Gita Upanishad, is ontologic metaphysic transmission of substance, spiritual substance. So
Beautifully said.
it's amazing. It's the book of the book. I don't get why in the university they don't teach it. Actually, I remember when I was kid, secondary school, was there in the ministerial program. You can choose Odyssey, Aeneid, or Mahabharata
Oh.
as a mythological book, I would say, epic. And then my teacher chose it, and I still remember some quotation of the first chapter. Then they remove it. Why they remove it? Because really the secular system of education is not favorable to the development of the person. And now I talk with so many parents, they are doing homeschool. And because it's true, it's not friendly, it's against you. It teaches you avidya.
Avidya, yeah, like Arun Krishna Prabhu was saying.
Yeah, not just ignorant, just apply in the reverse
The
way
opposite of knowledge.
the information that suit on you. So really, we can do this. We can fill the gap in our center. Teach the Bhagavad Gita seriously, like you are doing on the weekly basis. It's very good for people and for society also.
Yeah, that's a nice insight, and it's really true. You know, there's so many things that you can fill your brain with. Really, I mean, you could sit there and just scroll whatever your app of choice is, like all day long, and just Facebook or TikTok or Twitter or whatever it is, right? And that's what we fill our brain with. And, you know, to some extent, it's some type of stimulation, and it's interesting, and sometimes it makes us mad, and sometimes it makes us scared, and sometimes right? We're getting all these things from it, but we have to be rooted in the Gita and see all these things in their proper context, you know, whatever it might be. But if we really have to fill our head with something, you know, we should also make a conscious choice and say, you know, I would like to read the Gita. I would like to organize my life in such a way that each situation that faces me is progressive. I would like to organize my life in such a way that each circumstance that I'm in, I see as the grace of the Lord. I would like to organize my life in such a way that there's an evolution that's possible in every moment in the connection of the Lord. And that's a good use of free will. You know, again, these are all just choices. You can do whatever you want with the rest of your day today, do whatever you want with the rest of your day tomorrow. But, you know, spend a little bit of time about, how do I actually really want this? Because what you do tomorrow is probably what you're going to do the next day. And what you do the next day is probably what you're going to do the next day, right? And at a certain point, you're going to turn around, your life's gone by. And it's like, okay, like, really? Like, what do you need? Like, one more shelf in your garage full of crap? Or like, what? Like, where are you exactly going? Like, what are we exactly doing here? Like, at some point, there has to be some sober contemplation of the reality that we're actually within and the personality behind reality. And what is our real prospect in life? And that has to go through Gita. Yeah. And really through Govinda Maharaj and Srila Guru Maharaj's Gita.
Be a yogi.
Yeah.
Be a yogi.
Therefore, Arjuna, be a yogi.
I want to ask a question to you, Sudha. And maybe we can open little question and answer space, no? Sometimes Krishna very boldly, like almost arrogant, says, I'm the supreme person, I'm the origin of everything, I'm the receiver or the sacrifice. Just everyone has to surrender to me because everything comes from me and this and that. But and in first person he speaks. Then sometimes he speaks in the third person.
Yeah.
Talking about God.
Yeah.
How works this?
That's actually in chapter 7.
For example.
A little bit, yeah. Where Krishna starts to talk about the supreme person as he.
Yeah, he.
Yeah. In the third person. Do you want me to answer? Or
I don't know. I ask other person, but never get good answer really.
This is Krishna. The way that I read this is Krishna is referring to Paramatma.
Okay.
Super soul. And this is, of course, one of his potencies.
Yeah.
But Krishna is actually Krishna. Not just Bhagavan, but Swayam Bhagavan. Actually the supreme player. And he's referring to what is the potency, the conscious potency that is behind the existence of every single atom, every single component of every layer of reality that anyone can experience. And of course, we're experiencing a certain, you might say, sliver of reality. Right, where we can see what percentage of the light spectrum do our eyes pick up? Anybody know?
Very little.
1%, 2% is probably somewhere between 1 and 2%. Okay, that's what our eyes pick up. So we're seeing this wonderful, incredible world around us, and it's nowhere even close to reality.
Almost black and white.
It's a little sliver of what actually exists. Okay. So just by that, you don't have to go into ears or the nose or the taste. Snakes are navigating by taste. Like, we don't even know what these worlds are. The thing that we're in, we have no idea what it is. But Krishna does. But Krishna is talking about the Paramatma that is populating all of these layers of reality, including the little plane that we're in, which is a tiny little plane, right? I mean, Bhagavatam is saying, Bhur Bhuva Svaha Maharjana Tapa Satya. And we're like maybe in a little sliver of Bhu, of this earthly experience, right? So when Krishna is referring to that he or that supreme person who's behind everything, he's talking about his own potency of Paramatma that is giving existence to every single component of the reality that this phenomenal reality that we experience. And, it's a very beautiful thing in a certain sense. And it's also beautiful to conceive of everything else that's within existence. And, it doesn't take a huge imagination to go, okay, we have 5 senses. Like, for example, if you couldn't smell, is there any way anyone could ever explain to you what smell is? You would have absolutely no idea, and it doesn't matter how many books you read or anything, you just could not possibly conceive of what that is in any way. Well, guess what? There's probably a lot of that, right? Like, we're just in a little prison of our own just junk, right? And what are we doing? We come into this little teeny sliver of reality, and that's just in this universe too, which, by the way, we all know there's like untold billions of universes that are explained in the Bhagavatam, right? Just in this little universe, we come into a little teeny sliver of perception. And what are we trying to do? We immediately start going, okay, here's what I need to happen. It's like so insane. And then we're also get all like morose. It's like, okay, here's what I need to happen. Oh my God, it didn't happen. Why am I alive? You know, like, it's just totally insane. But we can have some perspective on this from Gita. You know, there's so much bigger, so much more that's possible. And what Krishna's saying is, come into this world as a contributor, as a participator, and offer what you have to give, and don't be demanding any kind of outcome. That's like the very beginning of the Gita. Just start to understand your perspective and your position a little bit, and come in as a giver. What do you got to lose? You come into a little teeny sliver of perception, start trying to lord it over and demand all your outcomes, and then you die. It's like a total like madness way of life. But come in and start to give to the Lord. Come in and start to like participate in your life, and don't shrink from the challenges, and walk into it and see what type of evolution and what type of role that you're meant to play. You know, this is an extremely positive viewpoint on existence. And it's actually the truth, which is great.
Okay. Okay, some other question to Sudarshan. Say again. On and off.
You know that shloka, I'm the immortal nectar, that comes at the end of that, you know, that whole context. Can you go into that just a little bit? That verse where Krishna is saying, and I am the immortal nectar. And, you know, and all these, like, sweet things, you know, like, he just suddenly switches into that, like, sweet relational, like, affectionate, wonderful thing. And he just, inexhaustible nectar, right? Yeah. And how, like, all of a sudden, there's so much knowledge, and then, but then he says, but here I am this, you know. Can you say something about that? It's so beautiful.
I mean, so there's a few parts of the Gita that are very poetic, where Arjuna asks a very similar question, where he says, how can I know you in the world? Like, how am I supposed to remember you? How can I see you within the world? And then Krishna will say something quite beautiful, like, you know the taste of water? That, like, unique, that's me. Like, you know, like, how are you going to come up with that? That's Krishna, right? And he goes into all these, like, in some ways you might say very simple descriptions. The smell of the earth. I mean, it's like really beautiful things. But Krishna's saying, like, that's how you can see me in the world. So, like, how can you possibly, like, interact with this world as an exploiter? You know, when Krishna's giving these kinds of descriptions, like, he's the one behind all of this. Like, you have to see Paramatma and Super Soul, like, sustaining all of these wonderful components of existence. And, you know, in one place, and then he goes and says, I am the source, the inexhaustible nectar, right? And this, like, amazing verse. We're not so far from the Lord. And I think that is the fundamental point of Vaishnavism, is that life is positive and extremely positive. And the Lord is so sweet in so many variegated and beautiful ways, and it can never be exhausted. You know, Guru Maharaj, when he translates the Shikshastakam of Mahaprabhu, Cheto Darpanam Arjunam Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam Shreya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam Vidyabadhu Jidamanam Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam Pratipadam Purnamrita Swadanam. In Loving Search, this is Guru Maharaj's translation. Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam Pratipada Purna Amrita Swadanam. He says, Pratipada Purna Amrita means at every tiniest instant, a purna means like an infinity. A purna of Amrita is created. The nature of reality as it moves is that there is a fresh infinity of what this is Guru Maharaj's words, of never before tasted nectar at every tiniest instant. That's actually what's happening. And that's the most beautiful thing you can ever hear or like imagine. Sarvatma snapanam param vijay. Every phase of yourself that you can conceive is totally bathed in that. And that is what? Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sang. That's the supreme victory of Sankirtan, Krishna Sankirtan.
Right.
That's the
Yeah, this is another thing. We read Bhagavad Gita in parallel with
Yes.
Chaitanya Charitamrita, other books. We don't read just Bhagavad Gita because we don't worship the Krishna of Bhagavad Gita. We worship Krishna together with Radharani. Radharani is not in the battlefield, really. So our Gita is always a little adulterated with Chaitanya Charitamrita, Mahaprabhu conception, and this. Other question?
One of the 5 or 6 attributes of Krishna, wealth, beauty, etc., it's also renunciation. How to understand God being renunciate?
Oh, I want to hear the answer because I cannot image Krishna as renounced, the supreme enjoyer. Really. I never harmonized this.
Oh, maybe some better devotees are making it. I mean, I can give a small answer, but you know, these are mysterious things. But my understanding of what that means is that Krishna, while at the same time everything is for him, he's not attached to any of it. So while everything is for him, he can take it or leave it at any minute.
We can see in Ramachandra
Yes.
pastimes, yeah.
Yeah.
But
So like he's not only is he the most of all these wonderful qualities, but he's also the most of yeah, that's my understanding of what that means.
Mahaprabhu, no?
say again.
Is that could that be in some way connected to Gauranga Mahaprabhu, appearance as a Gauranga?
So my understanding is that is not the, like Mahaprabhu took the sannyas, you could say ashram of life, but that's not actually, I mean there's a reason why whenever we're worshiping Mahaprabhu, he's not in his sannyas vesh. That's actually very, you know, we may not have these deep feelings, but for those devotees who are actually Navadvip Dham Basis, you know, real residents of the family of Mahaprabhu, they're not appreciating that. It's very painful for them that Mahaprabhu took that form for his lila. And Mahaprabhu also is teaching something, right? Because in the society that he's in, people respect that particular way of presenting yourself, right? And so he was also teaching us something, which is you present yourself in such a way that the people at large can hear your message. It's kind of a revolutionary tactic. I mean, extremely revolutionary, right? Because he took sannyas from Keshava Bharati, who's a Mayavadi, right? So he's just adopting this dress as his preaching form. But then he's giving something very deep, right? Like Guru Maharaj just talked about at the end of Search for Sri Krishna, right? When he's talking to Ramananda Rai, right? Who is his actual Ragamarg Guru? Who is he showing what is the actual essential thing? Then a little different form and totally breaking the norms of society. So on one side, he's taking on the form that is respected by the society so he can preach his message. But when he's showing what is the essence, then Ramananda Rai is breaking all the forms. And he's, Mahaprabhu's showing him as his Ragamarg Guru. So, different parts of his Leela. But for the devotees of Navadvip, it's very painful to think of Mahaprabhu in that renunciated form, that renounced form. They're always thinking him as their family. And Nimai Pandit, and so in all of our mats, we're worshiping him in that way.
Didi in form of Kala.
Okay. Jai Vishnu Pashi Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita Upanishad ki jai. Jai Shri Krishna Arjuna ki jai. Kurukshetra Dham ki jai. Om Vishnu Pashi Srila Bhakti Rakshak Shri Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Munindra Mohan Prabhu ki jai.
Sudarshan Prabhu ki jai.
Premanande Hari Bol.
Thank you so much. We are so honored to have you here. And Sri Govinda Mela classes are not over. We're going to have a 3 minutes refresh. And then we're going to have a treat. Our dear and beloved Jairam Prabhu is coming and with family to the stage. So you cannot miss it. In 3 minutes, 5 minutes, we start. We see you here. And also, we have class with Sripad Puri Maharaj at the temple room for everybody who speaks Spanish and want to learn Spanish, or want to speak in English, or want to speak like the transcendental language of Bhakti Yoga. So I see you in both classes. And after that, we're going to have our community sharing the closing from the Mela for the weekend. We're going to have the raffle. And we're going to have the badge adventure. So many things coming up. I see you in a minute. Dandavats. Govinda, Govinda, Govinda. Govinda. Govinda.